right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to talk about their offseason here, man. I really don't think it was bad in the slightest. In fact, draft-wise, I think they did a phenomenal job. I'm going to go ahead and give them an A- grade in the draft at worst. And in free agency, I like it. All right. I like Jimmy G. I get it. Especially this past week, Devontae Adams saying we're not really seeing eye to eye right now when talking about the Raiders organization. I get it. You came over to Las Vegas to play with your college quarterback in Derek Carr, and that didn't end up working out. So I understand the frustration, but sometimes you got to take a step backwards to take two steps forward. And think about it like this: even if Jimmy G were to say, not have a good season or injuries stack up for him or the Raiders in general, and you have a down season, well, you have a great quarterback class next season. Imagine the Raiders having Caleb Williams. Sometimes it just takes a down season. Sometimes it just takes perspective to get a different understanding of the situation. So let's take a look at the Raiders. But before we do, if you guys enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. My name is Jackson. I post daily Raiders content here on the channel. Let's try and get 250 likes on today's video. That would mean the world to me as we try and get to 10,000 subscribers. But, we talked about Jimmy G. What I like about the Jimmy G addition, going back to the Caleb Williams and next year's draft class, he signed a 3-year, $72.8 million contract. Well, they can release him next offseason and save $13 million against the 2024 cap. So they made a move, all right, and Jimmy G is a winner, all right? I'm not saying the Raiders, they have a tough schedule, I will say that. I'm not saying the Raiders are going to win 4 to 6 games or that they're going to win 10 to 12 games next season, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as it initially looked at the end of last season. So you pick up Jimmy G, you pick up a great veteran type of player. He's not really a veteran, Jakobi Meyers at the wide receiver position, because you did end up losing quite a few pieces on the offensive side, specifically Derek Carr. You lost Darren Waller in a trade, lost Foster Moreau, you lost Mac Hollins. Hunter Renfrow could possibly be on his way out, but to be honest with you right now, when taking a look at the Raiders offense for next season, and I'm like, all right, fully healthy on paper, the Raiders will be a good offense next season. I'll just say it. You have a young upcoming offensive line that actually did a good job last season, as much as some of the naysayers would argue. You have Jimmy G, you have Devontae Adams, you have Jakobi Meyers, and you have Hunter Renfrow in the slot. It actually doesn't even end there. You picked up speed, crazy threat in Phillip Dorsett. You made 2 moves at the tight end position in free agency in OJ Howard and Austin Hooper. And Austin Hooper, when he's healthy, is a hooper. And you drafted Michael Mayer. And you drafted Trey Tucker. So you have the best wide receiver in the National Football League. You retained one of the best running backs in the National Football League in Josh Jacobs. You have a great winner at the quarterback position, and you have sturdy, solid, veteran type of guys in Jakobi Meyers and Austin Hooper and Hunter Renfrow. And now you have these young cats like Trey Tucker, who I'm so excited about, and Michael Mayer, who I'm even more excited about. So I'm looking at this Raiders offense, and I'm like, yeah, I know you lost Derek Carr, but they're still, to me, they're going to be a top half offense. I would still say they're going to hover around 10th for points per game and just overall offense. They're still going to have a crazy rushing unit, and their offense is still going to keep them in games. But we all know the biggest critique last season with the Raiders was their defense. Time and time again, the Raiders defense let them down. Well, you're coming into year 2 under a DC. You're coming into year 2 of guys, Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler. Year 2 is always going to be an improvement, even if it's not necessarily in the win-loss column, although I really don't think the Raiders will I think the Raiders will win more than 6 games next season. I've been seeing a bunch of win-loss projections having Las Vegas around 6-11. I don't think it'll be like that. I think it'd be more 7-10, 8-9 if we're going worst case here. But defensively was where all their holes and all their flaws came in. Like, the Raiders tried to make some big-time moves. They traded for Devontae Adams, right? You pick up Devontae Adams. You pick up Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones didn't quite work out, although I really don't think Chandler Jones did that bad of a job in the second half of the season. In fact, I would argue he did perfectly fine. But you made a big-time draft selection in Tyree Wilson, and putting him on the defensive line, putting him on the other side of how can I not think? How did Max Crosby stumbled for a second or two there to think of Max Crosby's name, which is ridiculous. Neither here nor there. Tyree Wilson, long term, is going to be a great draft pick for this Raiders team. He's explosive. He's going to get to that QB, and we're going to see it on day one. It's going to be an immediate impact for a guy named Tyree Wilson, along with Michael Mayer. Get a little bit deeper into the draft. You drafted Byron Young, the defensive lineman. You took I think, a extremely underrated cornerback in Jacorian Bennett. I'm really excited about, honestly, both of those two cats. And you also made some nice moves in the secondary because, when we dive deeper into the numbers, or even just dive deeper into the eye test, watch back the film, or if you just watched it live like we all did, that secondary was not great. And, Rocky Sin isn't coming back. So it's not going to be an immediate shift on the defensive side, but I do like a lot of the pieces that they picked up as far as just quality depth pieces. For example, they lost Denzel Perryman. They didn't lose too much on the defensive side outside of Denzel and Rock, but the defense in general needed to be just filled out with depth. And that's exactly what they did, whether it was in the draft or free agency, signing guys like David Long. Duke Shelley, I think, is actually going to be a refreshing breath of fresh air. He brought in a safety, Marcus Epps. They made a couple of other depth moves. So, the defense, it's not going to be the best defense you've ever seen next season, and it's probably not going to be a top 10 defense, but I really don't think that defense will be that bad. Unfortunately for the Raiders, you are in not only the AFC, but you're in the AFC West. And, I remember sitting behind the mic a year ago thinking the AFC West is really good, but so are the Raiders. Well, the Broncos had a great offseason, or they made a great hire in Sean Payton. The Kansas City Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. The Chargers are coming off a brutal playoff loss. However, you have Justin Herbert still. It's a tough division. And so that's why I'm not sitting here saying the Raiders are going to win double-digit games, but I do think the Raiders will win between 7 and 9 games next season. And best case scenario, everything works out. You win 9+ games, you get into the playoffs. All right, what do we have here? Worst case scenario, even the worst of worst case scenario, say you win 6 games, 7 games, and you're like, all right, Jimmy G, this isn't really working out right now. But at least you still have a decent draft pick like the Raiders did this past year. But if it really hits the fan and you win 3 or 4 football games, well, you're going to have a top 5 selection in next year's draft class, and you're going to be able to select a quarterback. All right. So I really don't hate the situation the Raiders are in. I don't think they're in a full-blown rebuild. However, they are, certainly retooling. They're certainly retweaking, as always, when a new GM comes into town. But I'm not going doomsday with the Raiders. I've seen the schedule. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I will say I don't think it's going to be that bad. All right. I really don't. So let me know what you guys are thinking. Give me an official win-loss projection, or just a official win prediction down below in the comment section. As always, hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily Raiders content.